an outpost there, and our job. So there was this very large air base called FOB Shank, Forward Operations Base Shank, and the Taliban, who have complete refuge in Pakistan, they would come across the border into Afghanistan with, basically fully armed, fully rested, good to go, unlimited weapons, unlimited ammo.
You know, you're right. Like, we've made a lot of things in society come back to all the materialism.
Yeah.
And look, nice things are nice. I like some nice things too.
I'm
but
into that. Yeah.
There's a balance in life, right? And, you know, when you're thinking about these types of long weekends, if you will, like you described, Memorial Day, Labor Day, July 4th, you know, we have good memories, hopefully, of, you know, being around family and stuff like that. But you can kind of balance the two. Like, I know with July 4th, for example, you know, at least in my life, because I got big families, I've always been around veterans because I have veterans in my family. And people are wearing, you know, some American flag shorts, and it's there. You kind of remember it. But not everyone has that. And so I, you know, for the people that don't, I hope that there's some ability, like you said, to have that reflection, if you will.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be weird. It doesn't have to be awkward.
Right.
You know, you can just literally just take 10 minutes and just like hang out. Like, so on the 80th anniversary of June 6th, I actually like pulled up Saving Private Ryan, and I had my parents and my wife. We just sat there and we just watched the first 30 minutes of it. And
Amazing.
I was just like, hey, like we're gonna do this just out of respect for these guys, just to remember what they did. And you know, my mom and my wife, they weren't like super up to par on the sort of the history of what exactly happened, or they knew about it, but I was just kind of was like, this is why these guys did what they did. Like, this was a bunch of American boys going over to like just schwack Nazis and liberate Europe from evil. And you know, I was like, this happened 80 years ago today. And then we just watched the first 30 minutes of it. You know, and that was it.
Most amazing war footage ever captured in a Hollywood movie.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Ever. It's incredible what they did with that.
Yeah,
That's
it's so
cool
powerful.
That you did that, though.
Yeah. So I think I'll probably make that a tradition, probably with my kids at some point. You know, if I have kids in the future. But,
I like that for sure. But we got cut off with your story. You were finishing your training with Team 1 to go into deployment for what it sounds like was going to be Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So you knew the entire time you were training you were definitely going to Afghanistan. And this is now, so this is like 2011, 2012-ish?
Yeah, 2012, 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is an interesting time because, you know, I'm sorry if people have heard me say this on the podcast before, but just to reset the deck, like, you know, the Afghanistan military operation that occurred immediately after 9/11 was one of the most successful military operations in the history of the world. It was incredible. And then, obviously, Iraq is a whole nother conversation, but we go there and it's like, you know, to borrow Obama's line, took your eye off the ball, and Afghanistan shrinks in resources and very slowly has that now what ended up being 19, 20-year decline that led to 2021 when the Taliban took it back over. 2011, 2012, 2013, though, the way I've heard it, it was like the signs of that precipitous decline were already showing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. So when we landed in Afghanistan, this is my first time in combat, so this is my first time on a deployment, and then, you know, combat comes later. But we landed and we got an intel brief from the people who were already there on the ground. And so these intel people came in, they pulled up a big projector, and they're showing us the map of Afghanistan, and then basically they just started. It was a map of Afghanistan and all the different sort of provinces and regions, and they were like, we don't control here, we don't control here, we don't control here, we don't control here, here. We lost this last month, we lost this last month, and it was just, and I was like, oh my word, we're losing this war. Like we control nothing here. We have the ability to reach out and do missions in places because we have helicopters, but like we control nothing, basically nothing. We control only very little bits. Very, very small bits. And when I went to Afghanistan in 2014, we were in the process of continuing to, we called it retrograde. We were retrograding. We were slowly giving up bases and leaving it.
Giving up bases.
Giving up military bases, handing them over to the Afghan army. But they weren't in a position to be able to actually hold them. And so I ended up in Logar province in southeastern Afghanistan near the Pakistan border. And I was at an outpost there, and our job. So there was this very large air base called FOB Shank, Forward Operations Base Shank, and the Taliban, who have complete refuge in Pakistan, they would come across the border into Afghanistan with, basically fully armed, fully rested, good to go, unlimited weapons, unlimited ammo, total, total impunity. They can just cross that border whenever they want to. And they would come in and they would attack Fob Shank, which has big aircraft, lots of military forces, lots of Afghan forces. So I was in a very, very small outpost, middle of nowhere, right at the mouth of this valley that came out of Afghanistan, where all the Taliban fighters would come through. And so our job was literally go out, find the Taliban, pick a fight, kill as many of them as possible. Don't let them get to Fob Shank. So just kill as many Taliban as you can, find them, kill them, get them to fight. And then that was roughly what the mission was. However, you're not allowed to drop bombs on buildings. So if the Taliban runs into a building, you can't drop a bomb on it.
Oh boy.
Unless like the commander makes like a very, very specific decision. And then you also are not allowed to hit targets. You're not allowed to be aggressive and hit a target until the sun comes up, until dawn.
Why is that a rule?
Because the incompetent people in charge were setting the rules. It makes no sense, right?
It's like, all right, we got a truce at sundown. Like, what?
No, exactly. We were not allowed to hit targets at night. So we could get into position at night. So we would push the rules as much as we could. So we're like, okay, cool, sunrise is at 6:01 this morning. All right, so 6:01 in 1 second. All right, go. And that's what we would do. But by that point, the Taliban, they're up an hour before sunrise anyway, and they kind of know what we're doing. So, it was daytime, tree line to tree line fighting, sort of like Band of Brothers. Visually, it was just like just imagine like the hedgerows in Europe. That's kind of what it was. So we'd get into these gunfights with Taliban at 25, 50 meters, broad daylight,
out in the woods and the mountains,
out in the fields in the valleys. So it was like valleys that have a bunch of farm fields and stuff like that. So there's, instead of hedgerows, they have like little rivers and stuff like that. Yeah. And these tree lines. So yeah, it was really, really bizarre, what we were required to do. But yeah, we'd go out and we would fight the Taliban, and we were very successful at it, and it was good.
How many guys would go, like, what are your patrols like? Are you splitting up in teams of 10? Like what's the op tempo like there?
So depending on the mission, I mean, if we're doing like a presence patrol, we were doing, I think probably, I want to say 25 SEALs. We actually had a group of paratroopers that were assigned as security at our outpost. And because we're just running daytime operations, and these were good dudes, we're just like, hey, we throw in a squad of a machine gun squad of paratroopers, and they would just roll right with us too, because we were just doing daytime operations. So we were basically infantry, in a way. And so we'd run out with total maybe like 30, 35 guys, because we'd have some Afghans with us as well. And then we'd have Afghans in other positions around. But yeah, like the main element would be like, 30, 35 people maybe.
I would imagine you came upon some villages in doing this and things like that. You interacted with people who weren't Taliban?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What was the vibe of those people? Because at this point, again, we're like 11, 12 years in. Taliban's taken more and more places. It seems like, to get an intel report like that you just described when you get on the ground, that feels like a morale-killing moment,
Yeah, so I didn't have a lot of personal interaction with the locals, because I was just the junior guy on the team, so I didn't have I wasn't sitting there with the interpreter having conversations with people. The interpreters were with the officers and like higher ranking guys making decisions. So I was just kind of following and told doing what I was told. But the people were sort of indifferent. They would see us walking around, and they would just be out kind of farming their fields. If they weren't farming their fields, or if they all started kind of going back to their houses, you knew it was about to pop off. They would know stuff was going to pop off. So, so that was a thing. And then also too is like you can't even get mad at these people for not even necessarily supporting us, because if they help us, they know that in like 3 months we're gone, and the Taliban are going to move into town, and anybody who collaborated, you're just going to get killed. So. They were sort of indifferent. It's sort of as kind of the vibe that I got from them. They didn't want to help us, because they're like, dude, if I help you, I'm going to be dead in 6 months, and my kids, So not a great look. And then so during that time, summer 2014, this is actually the same summer that ISIS started taking over Iraq. And so during this time, we knew that at the end of the deployment, we were actually just going to leave our base. We didn't tell the Afghans exactly which day we were going to leave. So we stopped combat operations after I think it was 3 or 4 months. At that time, a bunch of SEALs had gone into Iraq to deal with ISIS, and so I got pulled out of Iraq because combat operations stopped, and I went to backfill a standby SEAL unit in a different part of the world. That standby unit had already gone into Iraq. So anyway, we had to sort of refill the standby unit. So I went there, and the guys that were in my platoon, they literally just in the middle of the night, a helicopter came in. They all ran to the helicopter. The helicopter flew away, and then that was it. The Afghans woke up, and all the Americans were gone, and that was it. Yeah, and of course, I'm sure that place fell within a few weeks.
Yeah, you were saying at that initial intel meeting, the goal or stated goal was just go find Taliban and kill them. Did you feel like there was even an overall goal, though? That's not really a goal. That's like a, all right, let's go find any bad guys and do the bad thing to them, or the good thing to them, I guess, right? It seems like there wasn't a core objective. Like, hey, we can take this city and this town and this place, set up a fortress, and then be able to drive out Taliban, and then you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing like that seems to be presented to you on the board.
No, not at all. Not at all. So I don't know what the exact U.S. policy was toward Afghanistan at that time. I understand the policy was sort of like retrograde, so we were slowly withdrawing and sort of collapsing all of our positions around the country back to sort of the core of Afghanistan. Yeah, I don't know what the actual U.S. policy was, but it was definitely not aggressive. It was not, let's go in there, let's schwack, bad guys. It was very much. We're slowly handing this thing back.
Right.
And everybody knew that the Afghans weren't going to be able to hold. That wasn't, so anybody, especially if you want to fast forward to the 2021 debacle where the Biden administration was saying, well, we've trained the Afghans for 20 years. They should be able to handle it. And it's like, no, dude, everybody knows that they weren't trained properly. It was a total disaster in how it was handled.
I've heard some horror stories off camera about the training that occurred. Big air quotes.
Okay. I was never involved in that particular training, but it was like the biggest thing that I saw that was a big problem with how we trained the Afghan forces. We trained the Afghan forces, or tried to train them, to fight like how we fight. But Americans, we rely heavily on our firepower. We rely heavily on ISR, drones, AC-130 gunships.
They got all that. Come on.
Yeah,
now.
Exactly. So the Afghans, that's what they were. That's how they were taught to fight. And so then the moment we get rid of all that, they, it's like they're like, dude, we don't know how to fight without all this backup. So now it's just Taliban with rifles and RPGs versus us with rifles and RPGs. Who's going to win? Taliban, because that's all they do. That's all they know how to do, and they're going to crush you. So we really set the Afghans up for failure.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.